The words hung in the air between them like poison gas, slowly filling every corner of their bedroom. She had said it so casually, as if discussing what to have for dinner, her eyes fixed on the television screen while some late-night talk show host cracked jokes to canned laughter. "I've been having fantasies about someone at work." He had frozen mid-motion, his hand suspended above the book he'd been reading. The room suddenly felt smaller, the walls pressing inward. His first instinct was to laugh it off, to assume she was joking, but the tone of her voice, detached, almost clinical, told him this was something she'd been rehearsing. "What?" The word came out strangled, barely audible. She finally turned to face him, and in her eyes, he saw something he'd never seen before, a kind of defiant vulnerability, as if she was daring him to be upset while simultaneously pleading for understanding. "It doesn't mean anything. Everyone has fantasies. I just thought we should be honest with each other." Honest. The word tasted bitter in his mouth. They'd been married for 7 years, together for 10. They'd weathered his father's death, her mother's cancer scare, the miscarriage that had nearly broken them both. They'd built a life together, a modest house in a decent neighborhood, 2 cars, a garden she tended every Sunday, his workshop in the garage where he restored vintage radios. And now, with one casual admission, she'd taken a sledgehammer to the foundation. "Who is he?" His voice was steadier now, but his hands trembled as he set his book aside. "Does it matter? It's just a fantasy. Nothing's happened. Nothing will happen." She turned back to the television, signaling the conversation was over. But it wasn't over. Not for him. That night, he lay awake listening to her breathing beside him, wondering if she was really asleep or just pretending. He studied the ceiling, tracing the familiar crack that ran from the corner to the light fixture, the same crack he'd been meaning to fix for 2 years. How many other cracks had he been ignoring? The next morning, she acted as if nothing had happened. She made coffee, kissed him goodbye at the door, and drove off to her job at the consulting firm downtown. He watched her car disappear around the corner, then called in sick to his own job. He spent the day in a daze, alternating between convincing himself he was overreacting and spiraling into worst-case scenarios. When she came home that evening at her usual time, 6:15, they ate dinner in near silence. He wanted to bring it up again, to demand more answers, but something held him back. Maybe it was pride. Maybe it was fear of what he might learn. 3 weeks passed. He tried to pretend everything was normal, but he found himself scrutinizing her every move. The way she checked her phone. The extra attention she paid to her appearance in the mornings. The distant look in her eyes when he tried to talk to her about mundane things like the water bill or what movie they should watch. Then the late nights began. It started innocuously enough. "I have to stay late to finish the Morrison proposal," she'd text. He'd eat dinner alone, watch television alone, sometimes fall asleep on the couch waiting for her. She'd arrive home around 9 or 10, claiming exhaustion, barely acknowledging him before heading straight to the shower. 1 week became 2. 2 became 3. The texts grew more frequent, the excuses more elaborate. Client dinners. Emergency meetings. Database crashes that required her specific expertise to resolve. He wanted to trust her. God, how he wanted to trust her. But that confession, that casual, devastating confession, had planted a seed of doubt that grew like a weed, choking out everything else. Every time she walked through the door late, smelling of her floral perfume and something else he couldn't quite identify, the seed grew larger. It was on a Thursday night, after she'd texted to say she wouldn't be home until 11, that he made the decision. He sat in his darkened living room, the only light coming from his laptop screen, and typed into the search bar, "Private investigators near me." The choice felt both melodramatic and inevitable. He didn't want to be this person, suspicious, sneaking, unable to simply ask his wife for the truth. But hadn't he already asked? And hadn't she already lied? His finger hovered over the mouse. One click would change everything. One click would give him certainty, for better or worse. He clicked. The private investigator's office was nothing like what he'd expected. No Venetian blinds, no frosted glass door with a name stenciled in gold letters. Instead, it was a nondescript suite in a modern office building, sandwiched between a dental practice and an accounting firm. The waiting area had motivational posters about success and determination, the kind you'd find in any corporate space. The investigator himself defied expectations too. Instead of a grizzled detective in a trench coat, a woman in her mid-40s greeted him, her handshake firm and professional. She wore a navy blazer and carried herself with the efficiency of someone who'd been doing this job for a very long time. "I've seen every variation of this story," she said once they were seated in her office. Her desk was immaculate, everything in its place. "You'd be surprised how often it ends with nothing. People work late. Sometimes that's all it is." "And the other times?" he asked. She met his eyes with a look that was neither sympathetic nor cold, just honest. "The other times, you get answers. Whether you want them or not is a different question. Are you sure you want those answers?" He thought about the woman he'd married, the one who used to leave him love notes in his lunch bag, who would dance with him in the kitchen while dinner cooked, who'd once driven 4 hours in a snowstorm to surprise him on his birthday. Was that woman capable of betrayal? Or had she already become someone else? "I need to know," he said. The investigator nodded and pulled out a contract. "I'll need photos of your wife, her vehicle information, her work address, and her typical schedule. My rate is $100 an hour, plus expenses. Most cases like this resolve within a week, sometimes sooner. I'll provide daily reports and photographic evidence of any relevant findings." He signed the contract with a hand that had stopped shaking. Somewhere in the process of making this decision, a strange calm had settled over him. The uncertainty that had been eating him alive for weeks began to recede, replaced by the knowledge that soon, one way or another, he would know the truth. That evening, his wife texted at 5:30, "Going to be late again. Don't wait up." He replied with a thumbs-up emoji, then forwarded the message to the investigator. The first 2 days yielded nothing unusual. She went to work, stayed at her office until 8 or 9, then drove straight home. The investigator's reports were detailed and time-stamped. Subject arrived at office building at 8:47 a.m. Remained inside until 8:23 p.m. Stopped at coffee shop on corner, purchased 1 drink, consumed alone. Arrived home at 8:51 p.m. He felt guilty reading them, like he was violating her privacy, even as he reminded himself that she was the one who'd planted the seed of suspicion. On the 3rd day, everything changed. The investigator's call came at 7:15 in the evening. "You'll want to see this in person. I'm parked outside the Riverside Motel on Highway 27. She's been here for 45 minutes. His blood turned to ice. The Riverside Motel was a budget establishment on the edge of town, the kind of place that rented rooms by the hour and didn't ask questions. He'd driven past it 1,000 times without a second thought. He arrived within 20 minutes, parking 2 blocks away as the investigator had instructed. She met him on the street, holding a camera with a telephoto lens. "Room 117, she said. She arrived at 6:30. A man joined her 10 minutes later. White male, approximately 6 feet tall, athletic build, drives a grey sedan. She showed him photos on the camera's display screen. He stared at the images, each one a knife to the chest. His wife getting out of her car. His wife glancing around nervously. His wife walking to a motel room door. A man approaching the same door. The door closing behind them both. Did they? He couldn't finish the sentence. "I can't see inside the room," the investigator said. "But they've been in there together for nearly an hour now. That's usually enough for most people to draw their own conclusions." He nodded numbly. Part of him wanted to storm into that room, to confront them both, to make a scene. But a larger part, the part that had remained calm since signing the investigator's contract, told him to wait. To gather all the evidence. To be strategic. "Who is he?" he asked. "I'll find out. Give me another day." That night, when his wife came home at 9:30, smelling of soap and wearing different clothes than she'd left in that morning, he said nothing. He kissed her cheek when she walked through the door, asked about her day, and accepted her vague response about spreadsheets and conference calls. He was becoming a good liar too. The next afternoon, the investigator called again. "I've got a name. The man's name is David. He works at the same consulting firm as your wife. And there's something else you should know, he's engaged. Wedding's planned for next month. His fiancee's name is Rebecca Chen. She's a pediatric nurse, 28 years old. I've got her contact information if you want it. He sat in his car in the office parking lot, the phone pressed to his ear, and felt something shift inside him. This wasn't just about his marriage anymore. The manila envelope arrived at his door 3 days later via courier. Inside were photographs, time-stamped documents, receipts, and a comprehensive report that read like a prosecution's closing argument. The investigator had been thorough, devastatingly so. He spread the contents across his kitchen table, each piece of evidence another nail in the coffin of his marriage. Photos of his wife and David entering the motel on 4 separate occasions over the past week. Credit card receipts showing she'd paid for the rooms. Apparently David was cautious enough not to leave a paper trail. Screenshots of text messages the investigator had managed to capture through some technical method he didn't fully understand and wasn't sure he wanted to. One message made his stomach turn. "Can't wait to see you tonight." He doesn't suspect a thing. He sat at that table for hours, watching the afternoon light fade into evening, then darkness. His phone buzzed with her usual text, "Working late again. Love you. Love you." 2 words that had once meant everything, now hollow as a drum. He didn't respond. Instead, he gathered the evidence, carefully organizing it into chronological order. The investigator had done more than document an affair, she'd uncovered the entire architecture of the deception. The pattern was clear, every Tuesday and Thursday evening for the past month, sometimes Fridays. The same motel. The same room when available. But it was the second half of the report that gave him pause. The investigator had compiled a separate dossier on David, and on his fiancée, Rebecca. Engagement photos from social media. The wedding registry. The venue where they'd booked their reception. And most importantly, the date of their engagement party, Saturday, 2 days away. He looked at Rebecca's photo, a young woman with kind eyes and a bright smile, her arm around David's waist, both of them radiating the kind of happiness he remembered from his own engagement photos. She had no idea. She was planning a future with someone who was systematically betraying her. The investigator had included her contact information with a handwritten note. "What you do with this information is your choice." But speaking from 20 years of experience, the other party usually deserves to know. They're making life decisions based on lies. He thought about it all night. While his wife slept beside him, coming home at 11 claiming database emergencies, he stared at the ceiling and wrestled with his conscience. Was it his responsibility to tell Rebecca? Or was that just revenge disguised as righteousness? By morning, he'd made his decision. He sent Rebecca a message through social media. "My name is unimportant, but I have information about your fiancé that you need to see before your wedding. This is not a prank or a scam. I have documented evidence. Please call me at this number if you want to know the truth." She called within an hour. Her voice was cautious, suspicious. "Who are you? What is this about?" "I'm someone whose wife has been having an affair with your fiancé. I have proof, photos, dates, times, locations. I'm sending you the full investigator's report because you deserve to know who you're about to marry." There was a long silence. Then, "Send it." He emailed her everything. Every photo. Every receipt. Every timestamp. He held nothing back. 20 minutes later, his phone rang again. This time, her voice was different, harder, but shaking with barely controlled emotion. "The engagement party is tomorrow night," she said. 7 o'clock at the Grandview Ballroom. 75 guests, mostly his family and co-workers. I paid for half of it with money I've been saving since I was 16 years old. Another pause. "Thank you for telling me. I know that couldn't have been easy." "What are you going to do?" he asked. "What would you do?" He thought about his wife, about the 7 years of marriage, about the lies and the late nights and the casual way she destroyed everything they'd built. "I honestly don't know." "Well, I do," Rebecca said, and there was steel in her voice now. "I'm going to make sure everyone knows exactly who they're celebrating." She hung up, and he sat in the growing daylight of his kitchen, wondering if he'd just made everything worse or better. His phone buzzed with another text from his wife. Morning. Running to the gym, then office. Home for dinner tonight. Promise. Another lie. He knew from the Investigator that Thursday was one of their regular motel days. He typed back, sounds good. Love you. Two could play at this game. That evening, he did something he'd never done before. He drove to the Riverside Motel himself. He parked where the Investigator had shown him and waited. Sure enough, at 6:45, his wife's car pulled into the lot. 5 minutes later, David's grey sedan arrived. He watched them meet outside room 117, watched David pull her into an embrace, watched them disappear inside. He sat there for 90 minutes, numbness giving way to anger, anger giving way to something colder and more focused. When his wife came home at 10:30, her hair still damp from a shower he knew she hadn't taken at the office, he was waiting in the living room with all the lights off. You're home. She jumped, startled by his silhouette. Why are you sitting in the dark? Just thinking, he said. How was work? Exhausting. Database migration is killing me. She laughed, so casual, so practiced. I bet, he said. If she detected anything in his tone, she didn't show it. She kissed the top of his head and headed upstairs. I'm beat. Coming to bed. In a bit. He listened to her footsteps on the stairs, the sound of the bathroom door closing, the shower starting up for the second time that night. He thought about Rebecca, about tomorrow's engagement party, about 75 unsuspecting guests. And he thought about the suitcase in his trunk, already packed with his wife's clothes. Saturday evening arrived with the cruel indifference of any other day. The sun shone, birds sang, and somewhere across town, caterers were setting up champagne fountains while a florist arranged centerpieces that would cost more than most people's monthly rent. He spent the day in a strange fugue state, going through the motions of normalcy while his mind raced ahead to what would unfold that evening. His wife was oblivious, chatting happily about a sale at her favorite store, asking if they should order pizza or Chinese food for dinner. Actually, he said, keeping his voice level, I was thinking I'd go visit my brother tonight. Haven't seen him in a while. She brightened at this, perhaps relieved at the prospect of a free evening. That's a great idea. Tell him I said hi. Of course she was relieved. Saturday wasn't a usual motel night, but he'd checked with the Investigator. There was no event on David's calendar tonight except his own engagement party. His wife probably planned to spend the evening however she pleased, maybe catching up on the work she'd been pretending to do all those late nights. He left the house at 6:30, telling her not to wait up. Instead of driving to his brother's place 3 states away, he headed downtown to the Grandview Ballroom. He'd called Rebecca the day before to tell her his plan, or rather, to make sure he wasn't interfering with whatever she decided to do. She'd been quiet for a long moment before responding. You should be there, she'd said finally. You deserve to see this too. Park in the back lot. I'll have someone let you in through the service entrance. Now, sitting in his car behind the elegant venue, he questioned the wisdom of this decision. What was he hoping to gain? Closure? Revenge? Validation that he wasn't crazy, that his instincts had been right all along? His phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number, service door. Now. Inside, the ballroom was a study in casual elegance. String lights draped across the ceiling, tables dressed in cream linens, a bar station where a bartender was setting up top-shelf liquor. And people, so many people, dressed in cocktail attire, laughing and chatting, completely unaware that they were about to witness a detonation. Rebecca found him near the kitchen entrance. She wore a stunning navy dress, her hair styled perfectly, her makeup flawless. Only her eyes betrayed what was coming. They held the same cold determination he'd felt growing inside himself all week. Thank you for coming, she said. I wasn't sure I could do this alone. Where is he? Holding court near the bar, accepting congratulations like he deserves them. Her voice was bitter. I've been the perfect fiancé all day. Smiling, greeting his family, pretending I don't know he's been screwing a married woman in a motel that charges by the hour. He flinched at the bluntness, but she was right. Why soften the truth now? His parents are here, Rebecca continued. His grandparents. His boss. Half his office, including your wife's co-workers. I wanted to call it off, to just leave, but then I thought, why should I be the one who's embarrassed? Why should I slink away while he gets to keep his reputation intact? Before he could respond, someone clinked a glass. The crowd's chatter died down as David's father stepped to the center of the room, raising his champagne flute. I want to thank you all for coming to celebrate my son and his beautiful bride-to-be, he began, his voice warm with paternal pride. When David first told us about Rebecca, I knew she was special. The way his face lit up when he talked about her, that's how you know it's real love. Real love. The words hit like a physical blow. He watched Rebecca's jaw tighten, watched her hand clench around her champagne glass. The father continued, telling anecdotes about David's childhood, about how he'd always known his son would find someone special. The crowd laughed at appropriate moments, awed at the sweet parts. David stood near the front, his arm around Rebecca's waist, beaming with the confidence of someone who thought he'd gotten away with everything. When the speech ended, David took the microphone. Thank you, Dad. And thank you all for being here. Rebecca, sweetheart, would you like to say a few words? This was it. He found himself holding his breath. Rebecca took the microphone with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. I'd love to. But first, I think we should all toast to honesty, to trust, to the foundation that real relationships are built on. She raised her glass, and the crowd echoed the gesture. Then she set down her champagne and pulled a manila envelope from behind the gift table. I received an interesting package this week, she said, her voice carrying across the suddenly silent room. It contained a private investigator's report. Very thorough. Lots of photos. Would anyone like to see them? David's face drained of color. Rebecca, what are you? Room 117 at the Riverside Motel, she continued, pulling out photos and holding them up for the crowd to see. Tuesday, November 19th, 6:30 p.m. Thursday, November 21st, 7 p.m. Tuesday, November 26th. Thursday, November 28th. She walked through the crowd, showing the photos to anyone who would look. People gasped, whispered, pulled back in shock. Rebecca, please. David was moving toward her now, but his father blocked his path, staring at his son with dawning horror. These photos show my fiancée. Rebecca's voice grew louder, harder, meeting with a married woman. Her name is on page 3 of the report if anyone's curious. They've been sleeping together for at least a month, possibly longer. Every Tuesday and Thursday, like clockwork. Sometimes Fridays. She pulled out more papers. Here are the credit card receipts. Here are the text messages. My personal favorite is this one. Can't wait to see you tonight. He doesn't suspect a thing. She looked directly at David. Except he did suspect. And now everyone knows. The room had erupted into chaos. David's mother was crying. His father looked like he might have a stroke. Guests were pulling out phones, perhaps to capture the moment, perhaps to text friends about what they were witnessing. David stood frozen, his mouth opening and closing like a fish drowning in air. Rebecca set the microphone down on the gift table with a decisive thunk. The wedding is off, obviously. The venue's non-refundable, so enjoy the party, everyone. The bar's open. She turned to David one last time. I hope she was worth it. Then she walked out, head high, leaving destruction in her wake. He followed her into the hallway outside the ballroom, where she finally let the facade crack. She leaned against the wall, breathing hard, her hands shaking. Did I just do that? She whispered. You did. Was it too much? Should I have just quietly broken up with him? He thought about his wife at home, probably watching Netflix, completely unaware. No, he said. He deserved exactly what he got. He sat in his car for a long time after leaving the ballroom, listening to the muffled sounds of chaos drifting through the walls. Eventually, people started trickling out, their cocktail attire at odds with their shocked expressions. Some were on phones, no doubt spreading the news. Others left in small groups, talking in hushed, urgent tones. David stumbled out around 9 o'clock, his parents flanking him like prison guards. His mother was still crying. His father's face was stone. They didn't look at the gathering onlookers as they loaded into their car and drove away. He wondered if anyone from the office had been there. If anyone would tell his wife what had happened. Then he realized it didn't matter. The entire city would know by morning. Social media was probably already exploding with the story. Engagement party destroyed by cheating scandal. Someone had likely filmed Rebecca's speech. It would go viral. The drive home felt both too long and too short. He rehearsed different opening lines in his head, then discarded them all. What was there to say? The evidence spoke for itself. His wife's car was in the driveway when he arrived. Lights were on throughout the house. For a brief moment, he felt the pull of the familiar, the warmth of home, the years they'd shared, the life they'd built. Then he remembered room 117 and the lies and the casual way she'd texted "love you" while betraying everything those words meant. He popped the trunk and pulled out the suitcase he'd packed that morning while she'd been at the gym. He'd included everything she'd need: clothes, toiletries, medications, her laptop, important documents. He'd been methodical, almost mechanical. The act of packing her life into a single suitcase had been strangely cathartic. The front door was unlocked. She was in the living room, curled up on the couch with a book, still in her comfortable weekend clothes. She looked up when he entered, smiling. "You're back early. How's your brother?" He set the suitcase down in the center of the room with a heavy thud. Her smile faltered. "What's that?" "Yours," he said simply. The book slipped from her hands. "I don't understand." He pulled out his phone and opened the folder of evidence photos the investigator had sent him. He set the phone on the coffee table, photo after photo filling the screen. His wife and David outside the motel. Entering the room. Credit card receipts. Text messages. All color drained from her face. "Where did you get these?" "A private investigator. I hired her 4 weeks ago, right after you started coming home late. Funny thing, she found exactly what I suspected she'd find." His voice was calm, almost conversational. Inside, he felt like he was watching himself from a distance. "It's not, I can explain." "Don't." The word came out sharper than he intended. "I don't want to hear explanations or excuses or whatever story you've prepared. I've had weeks to imagine what you might say. None of it matters." She stood up, her hands shaking. "Please, can we just talk about this? It was a mistake. A stupid, terrible mistake. But we can work through this. We can go to counseling. I'll quit my job. I'll do whatever it takes. Do you know where I was tonight?" He cut her off. "I was at David's engagement party." Well, his former engagement party. His fiancée received a copy of the investigator's report. She read it out loud to everyone there, his parents, his grandparents, his boss, half your office. She showed them the photos. She read your text messages. His wife's knees seemed to give out. She sank back onto the couch. "Oh my God. Oh my God, no. His wedding is off. His reputation is destroyed. And tomorrow, when everyone at your office knows what happened, yours will be too." He picked up the suitcase and held it out to her. "You need to leave. This is my house too." The desperation in her voice was palpable. "You can't just throw me out." "I'm not throwing you out. I'm asking you to leave because I can't look at you right now. I can't sleep in the same bed as you. I can't pretend that what you did is something we can just get over." His hands were steady now, his voice firm. "You made a choice every single time you texted me that you were working late. Every time you lied to my face. Every time you came home smelling like soap and acted like nothing was wrong. You chose this." She was crying now, ugly sobs that shook her whole body. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I don't know what I was thinking. It was like I was someone else." "You were yourself," he said quietly. "That's what makes this so hard. You were always yourself. I just didn't know who that was." He moved toward the door, expecting her to follow. When she didn't move, he set the suitcase by the entrance and turned back to her. "I've already talked to a lawyer," he lied. He hadn't, but he would first thing Monday morning. "The house is in both our names, so we'll have to figure that out. But for now, tonight, I need you gone. You can stay with friends, family, a hotel, I don't care. But you can't stay here." "What about us?" Her voice was small, childlike. "Is this it? 7 years of marriage just over?" He thought about the question seriously. Was it over? Could people come back from betrayal this fundamental? Some couples did, he knew. Some worked through affairs and emerged stronger. But those couples probably started with honesty, not with months of calculated deception. "I don't know," he finally said. "Right now, I can't see past tonight. Maybe eventually I'll be able to think about tomorrow, next week, next year. But tonight, I need you to leave." She gathered herself slowly, moving like someone in a dream. She picked up her purse, her phone, slipped on her shoes. She walked to the suitcase and stood there for a moment, one hand on the handle. "I really am sorry," she whispered. "I know that doesn't fix anything. But I need you to know that I never meant for this to happen. I never wanted to hurt you." "But you did," he said. "You did hurt me. You broke something I don't know how to fix." She wheeled the suitcase to the door, then paused with her hand on the knob. "Can I call you? Tomorrow?" "I don't know if I'll answer." She nodded, accepting this, and walked out into the night. He watched through the window as she loaded the suitcase into her car, as she sat in the driver's seat for several minutes without starting the engine, as she finally drove away, her taillights disappearing around the corner. Then he was alone. The house felt different now, larger somehow, and emptier. He walked through each room, seeing it with fresh eyes. The bedroom where she'd slept beside him while planning her next motel visit. The kitchen where she'd eaten breakfast and kissed him goodbye before going to meet her lover. The living room where she'd sat reading while he'd been at the engagement party watching her affair get exposed to the world. He ended up back in the living room, sitting on the couch where she'd been when he arrived home. His phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Thank you for tonight. For being there. For telling me the truth. You saved me from making the biggest mistake of my life. Rebecca." He typed back, "You saved yourself. I just gave you the information." Her response came quickly, "We both got out. That's what matters." Did he get out? He wasn't sure. Getting out implied escape, freedom, moving forward. Right now, he felt suspended in amber, trapped in this moment between his old life and whatever came next. His wife called around midnight. He let it go to voicemail. She called again at 12:30. Voicemail. At 1 a.m., a text, "I'm at my sister's. Please call me when you're ready to talk. I love you." I love you. Those words again. Did she love him? Could you love someone and do what she'd done? Maybe her version of love was different from his. Maybe for her, love was something that could coexist with betrayal, something compartmentalized, separate from desire or temptation or whatever had driven her to room 117 every Tuesday and Thursday. But for him, love had always meant honesty, partnership, the belief that you faced life together, good and bad, and that you protected what you'd built. She'd taken that belief and shattered it as carelessly as dropping a glass. He didn't respond to her text. Instead, he pulled up the photos one more time, not to torture himself but to remember. To cement in his mind that this was real, that he hadn't overreacted, that his instincts had been right all along. The last photo in the series showed his wife and David standing outside the motel room, his hand on her lower back, both of them smiling. They looked happy, unburdened by guilt or consequence. In that moment, captured by the investigator's telephoto lens, they existed in a bubble where nothing else mattered. He wondered if that moment had been worth it for her. Worth 7 years of marriage. Worth the home they'd built. Worth whatever future they might have had. Probably, in that moment, she hadn't been thinking about any of that. She'd been thinking only about him, David, the coworker who'd made her feel something new, something exciting. The future was abstract. The motel room was immediate. Now the future was here, and it looked nothing like what any of them had planned. David's engagement was destroyed. His wife's marriage was over. Rebecca had escaped a life built on lies. And he sat in his too-empty house, trying to figure out how to be a person who'd been betrayed. Outside, the world continued its indifferent rotation. Sunday would come. Then Monday, when his wife would have to face her co-workers, when David would have to face the consequences, when everyone who'd been at that engagement party would tell the story to anyone who'd listen. But for now, in the quiet hours of early morning, he allowed himself to feel everything he'd been holding back for weeks. The anger. The grief. The sense of loss not just for what was, but for what could have been. He'd loved her. Truly, deeply, in the way you love someone you've built a life with. And she'd taken that love and treated it as something optional, something that could wait while she pursued whatever thrill David offered. That was the part that hurt most, not just the betrayal, but the casual nature of it. The ease with which she'd lied. The practiced way she'd kissed him goodbye each morning knowing she'd be in another man's arms that evening. His phone buzzed again. Another text from his wife. Please don't shut me out completely. I know I don't deserve it, but please. He turned off his phone and went upstairs to the bedroom. He couldn't sleep in their bed, so he gathered a pillow and blanket and made a nest on the guest room floor. It was uncomfortable and strange, but it was honest in a way nothing else had been lately. Sleep came eventually, fitful and full of dreams he wouldn't remember. When he woke Sunday morning to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows, there was a moment, just a brief, disoriented moment, when he forgot what had happened. When he thought he might roll over and see his wife sleeping beside him, peaceful and innocent. Then memory crashed back, and he remembered, the suitcase, the engagement party, the photos, the lies. Everything that was and everything that would never be again. He got up and started his first full day in his new reality, one where he knew the truth, even though the truth had cost him everything.